Welcome, everyone. This is Victor Villegas from Oregon State University Extension Service, and I have a guest with me who is Denise. I'll let her introduce herself. Denise?
I'm Denise Rattan, and I'm a communications specialist and social media manager for OSU Extension Service.
And I've asked Denise to join us today to talk a little bit about social media, how she uses it for the extension services in the professional capacity. So, Denise, tell me a little bit what social media platforms is Extension using?
Extension is on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. And Pinterest is new for us since I got here. We've only had it about a year and a half.
Okay, and how have you seen its use grow in the last year and a half?
I've seen us, I'll bring up the screen here. I've seen us start from scratch to collect about 1,156 followers. And we've got several boards up here, about 34 boards. And they range from beginning farmers, extension news releases, 4-H, food preservation. I've got lots of gardening information and food and nutrition from Food Hero. And we started out with the goals of driving traffic to the website because we saw we got traffic without a Pinterest account, and boosting engagement, raising awareness of extension, and educating people.
So how are you getting traffic to Pinterest even though you didn't have an account? How's that possible?
That's possible because people can have a pin it button on their browser downloaded onto their computer, and they can pin images themselves from any web page they wish onto their own Pinterest account, and then their followers see that pin in their newsfeed.
Can you explain Pinterest in just a few words for those people who are still not sure exactly what it is?
So Pinterest is like a visual scrapbook or like an inspiration board. It's for people who think more visually, and it's a pretty addicting kind of platform because you get a lot of feedback from pinning or posting a pretty picture of a nice plate of food, and then if you get like 10 or 20 repins, you get a lot of positive feedback from that and keep going, and then you find lots more pretty pictures about your interests. And a lot of people use it to get ideas for fitness routines or to cook healthier or for what to wear, or it actually started out as big interest on it was people who were planning their weddings. So.
Interesting. So what kind of pictures do you pin on Pinterest? Is it just your own stuff, just the extension stuff?
I tend to pin a mix of things because the culture of Pinterest is very much non-self-promotional, non-advertising. The audience doesn't really respond well to only original content. So I mix it up and do a blend of original pins and repinning other people's pins. Usually I tend to repin more like university accounts and government accounts and things that I can vet a little better.
And what kind of audience do you see as following your Pinterest account?
I see largely women who are between the ages of maybe 25 to 50, a lot of suburban/rural audience, a little bit of higher education with a bachelor's degree usually, and they really like certain topics. Like what's popular with this crowd is more of the lifestyle kind of topics. So gardening and food plays really well with them.
Great. Is there a particular board or a particular pin photo that got pinned that has been more popular?
I would say one really popular one that's actually an original pin, if I can find it here. Let me see. It's basically a pin that was from a gardening story I did on how to grow hops in your backyard. And really popular among the home brewers around. And got a couple hundred repins, but let me see if I can find it
Looks like
specifically.
there's that one there. There's a picture on the top. That one right there.
No, it's earlier. Sorry for the delay. You can see some of our pins. Here we go. So this pin right here, there's our hops breeder. What a cool job that is. And it's got 508 pins and 36 likes. So that was a really popular one. And
can you tell that people have actually clicked on that and gone back to the original story on the extension website?
the way I tell that is by going into Google Analytics, and then I look up the individual website for the story on Google Analytics, and I can look up traffic sources and find whether they came from Pinterest.
Excellent. So what about Facebook? What can you tell us about Facebook's extension account?
So Facebook, a lot of what I started out doing for extension strategy was just figuring out which audience used each platform, and Facebook's audience is fairly similar to Pinterest, except tends to be all ages, and more men tend to use Facebook, and especially in like the last year, we've gotten a lot more participation from people who are employees of OSU Extension and county offices, not just on their professional accounts, but on their personal accounts as well, being active and engaging with the content on our page.
How about the general public? Are you able to engage with them on Facebook?
General public as well. We get a lot of 4-H parents, a lot of master gardeners, a lot of friends of the 4-H parents and friends of the master gardeners, and Facebook tends to be people who have been like kind of the legacy advocates of the extension service. If you know about the extension service and you've been helped by it, you tend to find us on Facebook. So it does tend to capture our preaching to the choir kind of audience. But it's also a good way to reach out to other audiences that we don't serve as well on other platforms. I've used it to try to reach out to Latino audiences and younger audiences as well. And younger as in the millennial generation. And I've also used it to reach out to our urban audiences in Portland and Eugene.
What kind of posts do you see as being more popular on Facebook? Is it the same as Pinterest?
Very similar to Pinterest, but they tend to be more about gardening, 4-H, and stuff like state fair, how to sign up for state fair, scholarships for 4-H. They want to know. I think of Facebook as more of the same audience that like a TV station in Portland might be catering to, so like a lot of consumer-oriented kind of stuff. Anything that matters to your everyday life. But there are also people who are really interested in natural resources and environmental issues, and like forestry. So I posted things about like what to do about invasive weeds like Scotch broom, and why that's a problem for forests. And for agriculture kind of stuff, I've focused on what the consumer interest might be. So a lot of CSA type stuff. Like I posted this link that got a lot of play from the Capitol Press about an app that lets you find food that's locally grown close to you. And that got about 15 or 16 likes and 6 shares and seen by almost 1,000 people. So
Excellent. So how often do you post on Facebook for Extension?
I post once or twice a day, and I also schedule posts out for the weekend because it has a big weekend audience as well.
And what do you use to schedule that?
What I do with that, I do it straight in Facebook. So I go into the status bar, I type in my status. Usually what I do with every post is I include a photo and I include a call to action, like a link to a web page. And then I can go to this icon right here, which looks kind of like a clock in the bottom left-hand corner, and I click on that, and then I can schedule it by date. So I'll put it on Saturday, and then I can schedule a time like 9 a.m. for example. Then I'll schedule it, and then I can look in. I'll just do a test post and then delete it. So schedule this for 9 o'clock a.m. on Saturday, so schedule. Then I can view my activity log and find all my scheduled posts. And so I often do this sometimes also to even just edit my post to make sure it's spelled correct and the grammar is right. So, and then I can either edit it and reschedule the time or publish it now, or I'm going to go ahead and delete it. And you can also do this in Hootsuite, which is a third-party application that lets you monitor your social media channels.
Okay, excellent. Do you use a publishing calendar to schedule your post? I mean, do you coordinate with other writers or whatnot from Extension to schedule certain points at certain months because there's certain topics that are popular during that time? Or, I mean, how do you schedule your posts? How do you come up with what you're going to post about?
I sometimes have a set calendar that I use. Other times I make sure to collaborate with other writers in my team, and they'll often come to me and tell me what they distributed to the media that might have good play on social media, and they have access to the accounts, and they'll post something, and then they'll check with me about what times are best. And then I also pay attention to seasons and like when it's in seasons that are relevant to Extension, like when it's state fair time, I'll know to go through and when it's county fair time, I'll know to go through and look at the county 4-H pages, and I'm always looking for fun photos of kids showing animals at fair time that I'll share to the wider statewide audience. And I also have kind of set things in my schedule, like for example, every Friday I produce a gardening how-to story that goes out to newspapers, and that gets pretty good attention on our social media audience. And I also have set times during the day where I'll set aside, say, 15 minutes to post content at the beginning of the day, and then I'll set aside another 15 minutes to make sure I interact and engage with people who follow us on social media.
Have you found that there's a optimum time to do posts so that people will actually see them?
It does change. Like when I started here, it was different, and 6 months later, it was different.
Really?
And then, so you kind of have to. I keep abreast of that by following social media conversations on Twitter, and a lot of people post articles or blog posts about their experience with Best Times. So I go by that and my own experience and my own analytics. And I found that the middle of the week is really good. And I found that what gets poor visibility tends to be like that 9 p.m. to like 8 a.m. time period at night, late at night. But I found like afternoon, during the workday, gets pretty good play. And you have to really pay attention to that because that hour right after you post is kind of the critical time for engagement. Like after that hour passes, then people are much less likely to engage with your post unless it's getting a lot of interaction and it gets pushed higher in their news feeds.
So I'm assuming you allow comments on your posts from the public. Can people comment on anything you post?
They can. So if I go here, they can either comment in this area right here, and I monitor that. We have some kind of basic guidelines that extension has set out, but I pretty much allow most things, but I don't allow advertising that has nothing to do with us or that might appear that extension is promoting a product. And I don't allow like obvious spam or anything like that. But like if someone asks a question, I'll try to get them an expert to respond. And like right here, like all my posts are public. This little icon right here refers to that. And then you'll see people responded to this question about what kind of content did you want to see on the Facebook page. So I got all kinds of stuff down here. Lots of gardening.
That's great. That's a lot of responses there. Excellent.
So sometimes I get some pretty neat comments actually. So
you said you get questions too, right?
Yeah, so let me bring you up an example of that. So if I go down here. Fine. Sometimes they're very odd questions, like this one. Let's see. Like this woman had a question about land for what type of grass would grow best for the type of conditions, but she also wanted to know if any colleges in Oregon had full ride scholarships for equestrian horse teams. So I just try to find like the best source for that. And here is an.
Do you monitor this daily or throughout the day to see if anybody has asked something?
My goal is to try to respond as quickly as possible. So. Let's see. Here's just an example. I'm trying to find one where someone responded back to. Oh, here we go. Here's someone who needed an identification of this strange fungus type thing.
Fungus, huh?
So, got a question answered. And then the client said, "That's cool. So is it common for them to be here in Oregon? They're in my backyard." And got another answer. Positive feedback. So.
Excellent. So what can you tell us about Extension's presence on Twitter? How to use Twitter for Extension?
So a lot of what I do with the Twitter account is I tend to focus our content because I found that our audience is less consumer oriented and not so like everyday person seeking a practical kind of answer to a problem. They tend to be more legislators, media folks, and scientists. So I tend to post content that's more the type of like impact statements and stuff about that would be of interest to like commercial agriculture and agricultural research where the public can keep track of how their tax dollars are being spent on those areas on extension. I do also talk about gardening. I've seen like there's a hashtag garden chat where I posted a lot of my weekly garden articles, and I'll respond to people who have gardening questions unsolicited and point them to a publication.
So you'll actually go looking for people that ask questions on Twitter?
Exactly. So what I do is I might look up, I'll either do this in Hootsuite or directly in Twitter, so I might look up garden chat and so please excuse her language, but she's complaining about deer who ate her plants. So what I might do is and she is an influencer. She's a blogger, a garden blogger, and she has 14,000 followers.
Oh my.
So what I might do is I might respond to her and I'd reply and I'd point her to some publication that we had that told her some tips about how to deal with deer in your yard. And I just try to give advice like that to be helpful.
Okay, but I'm seeing there that she's in Ohio, so what does that have to do with OSU Extension? Other than Ohio State.
Well, that's another thing about Twitter that I've found is that it doesn't tend to attract a whole lot of Oregon people other than media and legislators and some farmers. It tends to be more of a national audience, so I see it more as like branding and reputation building and just a way to get our name out there as and build up the cooperative extension name, which needs some help in the awareness department. Okay. And just see it as another branding tool, basically.
So, but by replying to this lady from Ohio, even though she's not in Oregon, she does have 14,000+ followers, and theoretically, some of those could be in Oregon, right? So they could actually see that. You never.
So she posts only gardening content. So maybe some gardeners who are in Oregon on Twitter also follow her as well. Mm-hmm. And then I also have lists set up for more local people. Like I have a list set up. I organize it to try to interact with reporters. Like I have a list for Portland TV reporters so I can see everything that they're tweeting about.
How do you find these people?
I look a lot. Sometimes you can find them on the TV station's website because they're doing it on behalf of the TV station, so the TV station is promoting their handle. Or if you see their name and you know it's someone who's interested in your content, then you can look them up here. A lot of times their Twitter handle is by their name. Or you can also look up the TV station's Twitter account, and you can either look in who they are following, or sometimes they'll retweet items that their reporters are tweeting, and then you can follow Carrie Tomlinson here or add her to a list. Add or remove from lists here. So that's how I find them.
Do you find that media people respond to your tweets or replies? I
have actually gotten my most prominent one was I reached out to a new Associated Press reporter who was stationed out in the Portland borough, and one of her beats is agriculture. So she was starting a new job, so I said, welcome to Oregon, and if you ever need any help, we have experts in agriculture and gardening. And she sent me a direct message back asking if she could get a list of sources and contact numbers and gave me her email. So I made kind of a personal contact that way and put her on my agriculture list. And she followed up with a couple of stories with some questions she had. Like she was interested in one on blueberry tree research. So just kind of making that personal
Blueberry
connection.
tree, or blueberries bushes?
They are, but up at NREC, one of their blueberry researchers up there is working on breeding a new kind of plant that's like a cross with a wild plant that grows as a more of a tree shape, and he's trying to make a plant that's easier for machines to harvest and saves growers money and production costs and labor.
Just the kind of stuff that people would like to know if they wanted to grow something, right?
Precisely. So,
Well, that was a great way of getting that out to the news then. Awesome. How often do you post to Twitter?
I do the same daily. I don't tend to do weekends on here, although I have heard, but I have not experimented with it myself, that weekends can sometimes get more attention because not as many people are posting on weekends, so your tweet can get more visibility in people's streams. So I've sometimes played around with that and haven't gotten too much visibility with it because I think my audience is mainly in the weekday workday. So.
Mm-hmm. So I've heard people say that social media is just a waste of time. What do you think? Is it for extension? Has it been valuable or not?
I think it's like any other kind of communication tool. Like you have to approach it with a strategy and figure out which audience you're trying to reach. You have to figure out which communication medium they're using. Are they on Twitter? Are they on Instagram? Are they still on email? Do they still need to catch up to you online on your website? And then like you need to develop goals for why you're using that platform or that medium, and benchmarks for measuring those goals, and keep on top of like analytics as you go along, do a little experimentation. And sometimes it works out that some social media platform maybe isn't meeting your goals or reaching your audience. And after you've done your research and you found that out, then maybe you need to change directions. But I think social media is here to stay, and it's just going to take on different forms. Like people are going to start calling it digital marketing and digital content instead of social media, because social media is basically the internet now. It's so interconnected to everything. I think it's just another way of reaching your audience in a place where they spend time, and it's another way to show that you care about your interests, another way to build advocates and fans and followers, and I think that's really important in these times where of like, I don't know, I think it's just another way to get the word out, but you have to use it strategically.
Okay. Has there been any challenges with your social media use for extension?
I think one of the biggest challenges is that it's always changing. Like every 6 months or so, Facebook changes its algorithm of how people see and interact with posts, so that you think you have an idea of you finally grasped a good way to do analytics, and then they change it, and then your organic reach numbers plummet, and you're like, wait, what's going on here? And it's just so you always have to keep on your feet and be always learning and open-minded to experimentation and seeing what other people are doing. I personally find that kind of exciting, but it is a challenge. And I think another challenge that people still have a hard time wrapping their understanding around is, and a lot of people in the private sector are still trying to figure this out, is basically the return on investment of social media, and figuring out that question of, so is it really worth our time? Because a lot of times building a relationship doesn't have a very clear ROI, but it's still an important thing to do. So like, how do you evaluate that, and how do you figure out how to prove its value is something that a lot of people are still dealing with.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing with us all that you have done with Extension, the social media part of it. Is there any last words you'd like to give to people? Any tips, suggestions?
I think the main suggestion I have is that when you first use social media, it seems really overwhelming, because, like, especially on something like Twitter, they want you to follow all these people, and you see a ton of like tweets coming through your feed, and it's really easy to just give up and not know what to post or how to interact with people. But I think you have to kind of come to the acceptance that you're not going to see everything. So you need to figure out a system for yourself of what value you personally get from it, and then set up a schedule that works best for you of how you're going to engage with that. Like, are you going to use Twitter to follow a hashtag and find the keywords for a conference that you wanted to go to but couldn't afford, but you can still follow the notes from afar? Are you there for articles? Are you there to promote your scientific research? And I think just realizing that it's a communications tool that's only as useful as the value that you get out of it and the priority you place on it. And I think just being willing to be flexible and have a little fun with it, and an open mind helps you get over feeling overwhelmed.
Well, thank you for your insights on that. And hopefully we'll be doing some more podcasts like these, talking with other people that are using social media in a professional capacity here at Oregon State. Thanks for listening. Take care.